so many new pieces to this IU football team.
To me, that's going to set the tone on how you get ready for games on Saturday in the fall.
I would put that Indiana room up against anybody else in the conference, and that's something that we typically don't even come close to saying.
If you want to get total sickos committee about it, there's a position battle at long snapper too.
This is the Hoosier Huddle Podcast, part of the College Huddle Podcast Network.
All right, welcome to the Hoosier Huddle Podcast. I'm Sammy Jacobs, along with me is T.J. Inman. We're presented by Heartwork Brewing, heartworkbrewing.com. We are also having a meetup for our subscribers, followers at Heartwork on Friday, the 22nd, from 4 to 6 p.m. Come by, stop by, talk, chat, and all of that stuff. So today we are talking special teams. We love the special teams over here, and we're going to start with last year, TJ. But first, how are you doing? I know we tried to record yesterday, and it was like it literally was talking into the space of the internet.
Yeah, I know. You said that we'll have to punt on this one. An apt description of what we had to do, given the subject matter of today's podcast. So. Certainly we are getting there, man. It is officially, I guess you'd say, week 0. And that's exciting. There is a little appetizer, Iowa State and Kansas State, the headline attraction on Saturday. So that's good to kind of wet the whistle before the opening official feast of college football. We're almost there, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, the Pop-Tart mascots are headed over to Ireland for Farmageddon. For those who don't know, the Iowa State-Kansas State rivalry. Again, those names make college football great. The Pop-Tart mascots are also what makes college football great. Right. All that stuff. So let's get into special teams a little bit. And last year, we'll talk about last year because special teams, they won some games. And they cost IU some games, the 2 games that they did lose. Last year I thought you found your field goal guy in Nico Radicic. However, they didn't test him past 40 or 41 yards. Not that they needed to. He was perfect, 69 to 69 on extra points, 10 of 11 on field goals. And he just comes off as a guy who has ice water in his veins. He is not going to be intimidated by anything. He kicked a big field goal in the playoffs, so the atmosphere and the weather really don't bother him. He did miss that kick against Purdue, and the field was a little icy. So maybe that affected it as well. But he's back. I think IU has one of the better field goal kickers in the Big Ten. Then you go kickoff specialists. IU went through like 4 kickoff specialists last year because of injury. I don't know if it was overused because they scored a gazillion touchdowns, but that was one of the wackier things I've seen. But you bring in Brandon Franke from Georgia Southern, who was formerly at Nebraska and some other schools, or he was from Texas State, formerly Georgia Southern, and Nebraska and Morningside. He's made the rounds. He has an over 80% touchback rate, which is important in the Big Ten because you've got some great athletes returning kicks. And if you could put it out of the end zone or deep into the end zone, it minimizes risk. Quinn Warren is back. He filled in well last year. He's one of the taller kickers I've ever seen at 6'5". And then, of course, Mark Langston is back at long snapper. He was perfect last year as well. And then a new punter in Mitch McCarthy. But, kickoff guy, I think you're going to improve. We'll talk about that later. Punting is where IU struggled last year. And kind of James Evans' bugaboo was consistency. The big play was the missed snap or missed catch of the snap against Ohio State, where you think IU's probably going into halftime at 7-7. You're punting the ball away with about 2 minutes left. and all of a sudden it's 14-7, and then coming out of halftime, your first drive is a punt that goes to the wrong side of the field, and all-world player Caleb Downs takes it for a touchdown, and it's 21-7, and the rest is history. In the playoff game, Evans averaged 33 yards per punt, and that was only because he had a couple good punts late in the game. Early in the game, he did not have a punt over like 25 yards on the first 4 punts, and it really tilted the field in Notre Dame's favor, played into their their strategy. They're a tough defense team who likes to run the ball as well. So some of the good TJ punt return. Miles Price had, the big punt return against Washington that kind of sealed that game. And there were other games as well that, Charlotte, he had a nice punt return, and then Keyshawn Williams sealed that Michigan game with the punt return that sent up the field goal to make it 20-15 before the defense could put them away. So they'll need to improve upon that. What were your takeaways from special teams last year?
I think you hit the highlights of it, and really what is memorable is, for me, the punt returns, just because we got used to rarely seeing anything of substance on the return game. So to have a couple of plays really flip games, or at least help IU cement them, that was notable and memorable. And then the miscues by James Evans. You look at his overall numbers, and they were solid. And for the most part, he was. But it was those, unfortunately, that's kind of the position of punter, right? It's, if you're getting noticed, it's probably because of a screw up.
Unless you play at Iowa.
Or if you play at Iowa. And you said it with the consistency issue with James Evans, and you hope that Mitch McCarthy is able to remedy that. You look at their numbers in comparison. Evans was punting, I believe it was 2.8 times a game. McCarthy was a touch over 3 per game, and McCarthy about 2 yards more per punt average. That's not statistically significant, but you just have to hope that those notable misses in the punt game are cleaned up, because with Indiana's schedule, you have to kind of expect that you're going to have some games that are played in those fine margins. It could be any of them, but the ones that you look at and say Illinois, at Iowa, Penn State, Oregon, those games could be played in those fine margins where a special team screw up, or a special team's big play on your end can prove to be the difference.
Yeah, especially against a team like Iowa, where you need every yard you could get. And if you could get a 15-yard punt return from whoever's back there, it really makes a difference. Or you pin their offense deep inside the 10. That makes a difference. I mean, Iowa's won a gazillion games that way, either on a punt return or because their punter was so good, nailing guys inside the 2-yard line, you get a safety or a turnover and make it easy for the offense. Let's start the 2025 preview with place kicking. We talked a little bit about Nico Radicic in the beginning. I thought he got snubbed off the Grozer Award watch list, but his numbers, I guess, weren't there for where they were. I mean, he was 10 of 11. He made some clutch kicks, and he led IU in scoring, and he probably will take the all-time extra points record this year, I believe. If not this year, it's definitely in the next 2 years. So he was really good. I thought he was going to come in 23 and kick, but he dealt with an injury.
Exactly.
He was coming off of surgery in January, so that he had a full offseason this year of, instead of rehabbing, building up, and I think that'll help with strength. He is, as I think Mark Langston put it, there's a little bit of crazy in specialists, and I think every one of these IU specialists does have that little bit of crazy, and Nico Radicic does too. And it's a good kind of crazy. It's not a bad kind of crazy. he is locked in, dedicated to his craft, and it's in a perfect world you'd score touchdowns, but if he could kick field goals and you could find your range around 50 yards or 55 yards, he gives you a real weapon. Again, in those games where you need to win on the margins, he could give you a leg up on those. No pun intended. Sorry, that was a terrible bad joke.
I do think it's going to be interesting to see the level of aggression in the kicking game. Indiana felt really good about their offense. We hope that they do again this year. So if it was a borderline decision, they were going to go for it. They were putting trust in Curtis Rourke to pick up those 4th and shorts when a long field goal could have been attempted. I would be interested to find out during a game what is the actual in-game range of Radicic. I think that'd be interesting. But it's really good to have a place kicker that, at least from a fan's perspective, and I think the coaches feel this way as well, that when he goes up there to attempt a kick, you expect it to go in. And that's a good feeling to have. It's not one we've always had, but we certainly do with Radicic. And you're right, entering last season, there was uncertainty about this guy was a highly rated kicker coming to IU. We didn't really see it the year before. Was it, all hype? Is he going to come good? Do we have a kicker? And he showed that was just all talk, and he is well worth the scholarship that Indiana gave to him. So,
we also had that onside kick against Notre Dame and Ohio State when they need an onside kick. Now that might change with Frankie, but last year he was their onside kick guy, and he was very good at it. And
yes, gave him a chance.
As a guy who's kicked off in high school and has practiced onside kicks, there's an art form to it to get that third hop or that unpredictable bounce. Now it's not always going to go your way because it's not a round ball. But he seems to be able to get that high bounce and put it where it needs to be. And we'll see if that continues this year, even with the new kickoff guy.
No questions with place kicking. We'll move to what's next. Do we have punting or do we have kickoffs next?
We have punting. Well, we could do kickoffs next since it is place kicking. And then we'll get into punting.
And we don't have any questions as who that's going to be, but there are options. You mentioned Quinn Warren. He was surprisingly a guy that filled in. Nobody knew about him at all.
We did.
We had him in our
countdown.
We had him in our
countdown pieces on him.
Yeah, had him in the countdown, but we didn't expect to see him on the field playing a key role. And he steps up when McCormick gets injured and averaged about 62 yards a kick. And really, there was no noticeable difference at all. If anything, he had a higher average.
And made a couple good tackles too.
Yeah, that's true.
Which you don't really want to see, but
and he's back.
If the guy gets back there, he needs to make that tackle. So yeah, place kicking kickoffs, you feel pretty good about. Knock on wood that the injury luck, it can't be worse than last year. You had 3 guys go out, or 2 guys go out with Quintero and Derek McCormick. Let's move to punt.
This staff plans for everything, but I can't imagine that was necessarily in their cards at the beginning of the year. Hey, what are we going to do if we get down to the 4th guy?
Yeah, that's the bingo card spot that you need for blackout bingo every time.
Yeah.
So let's move to punting. Indiana's punt game, they didn't really punt in the first couple games. They finally got to punt against UCLA. We could talk about James Evans' career a little bit and how inconsistent it was. He did have a huge leg, but we saw that he never really got to have that consistency late in the season, again, in those big games that IU needed. Mitch McCarthy comes in. He also seems like he's got a little crazy in him from Australia. He says, I have no idea what's going on in the game. So I need to be so locked in and focused that I don't notice anything around me, and that I'm attached to the hip of Mark Langston, who's the long snapper. If he goes on the field, I'm going out on the field. But he's really good. He's coming in from UCF. He's kicked in some big environments. Everybody gets a kick block now and then, but what you want to see is consistency. The average yard per punt, I think, is a little bit of an overhyped stat, because you could have a 38-yard punt from the 45-yard line, and it's a great punt. Or a 35-yard punt from the 40-yard line, and it's a great punt. Or you could have a 70-yard punt from the other 40, and it goes in the end zone, and it's not a great punt. So that's why I like looking at net average. If you could be around 40 yards at net average, that works. Also in punting, he forces a lot of fair catches. He doesn't have many touchbacks, and he can put it inside the 20. If you could limit those return opportunities, especially in the Big Ten with these dynamic athletes, you're in good shape. What do you think about Mitch McCarthy in the punt game?
I mean, the first thing that stands out when Indiana gets Mitch McCarthy, you see his measurables, and you're like, that guy is a punter. He's
the automated punter that they create when you're in year 3 of your dynasty in college football video game, and your punter graduates.
Yes,
you go, this guy should be a linebacker.
Well, hopefully he's better than the year 3 and year 4 punters in that game. I've noticed they're mostly all terrible as recruits coming in. They don't able to get it more than 30 yards, so hopefully it goes better than that. But you're right in terms of physical measurements. I mean, big guy. What I think you ideally have as an upgrade over Evans is consistency, but also a little bit better directional punting. Evans never quite grasped that completely. We saw some that were awesome, and then some that were. I believe that the derogatory term would be shank, something that no punter wants to feel, is that coming straight off the side and going, 25 yards. You're just wanting to cut down on that. Behind him, heaven forbid an injury occurs with your starting punter, but could happen. What do you think Indiana's second option is? It's not something you see at practice. You don't see special teams, but just your gut would tell you the backup punter would be.
So we're going to go deep into the roster.
That's right.
Because he was not on our initial countdown to kickoff. And let me get his name.
Is it Baker?
Quickly. Yes, Baker.
Yeah. Obadabe Baker.
Obadabe Baker, who spent the last 2 years in the Air Force Reserves.
Yes.
He's a redshirt senior. Interesting story. So he spent the last two academic years as a member of the Air Force Reserves. He played at Morehouse College, 10 games from 21 to 22. He's handled kickoffs and he's punted. So he's your emergency guy. He doesn't have a huge leg. It looks like he's averaged, less than 40 yards a punt. But if something happens to Mitch McCarthy, he's going to be the guy to step in. And if something happens to the first 3 kickoff guys, he's the guy. Well, Radicic would go in. The 4 kickoff guys, he's the guy who would handle kickoffs. So, he's kind of an insurance policy. He's probably not going to get rattled being in the Air Force Reserves. He has played college football. He just hasn't played it in the last 2 years. So, interesting story there, but, you hope you don't see him.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, interesting story, and hopefully it stays an interesting story. That's a cool part of the program, but
it'd be nice to get him in a punt if you have to late in a game of a blowout and stuff
Indiana
like that, just to get him on the field and get him some recognition. But if he is Now he hasn't punted in 4 years. Maybe he's gotten stronger, but you cannot have your regular punter averaging under 40 yards a kick. So let's move to the return game. And this was one of the surprising things last year. You have Solomon Van Horst, who came in. He was an all Sun Belt, I believe, kick returner at James Madison. IU returned like 6 kickoffs last year. And one of them was like the last kickoff from Notre Dame in the playoff game. So you went through the regular season with 5 kickoff returns from a guy who, and if you watch the games over again, there's space when he catches the ball and fair catches it when it's in the field. So I don't know what the philosophy there was, other than don't get hurt, or we have total faith in the offense to go 75 yards and score a touchdown, which ultimately paid off. They scored 41 points per game. This year, Van Horst is back for what is 18th year in college, something like that. He's a quick guy who can return
almost
kicks.
As old as us, Sammy.
Almost. Yeah, that's probably why he's not returning it, because if we got tackled, we'd be out for like 2 years.
I wouldn't need to be tackled. If I try to get above first gear, done for a month.
It's Sean Casey.
Out for a month.
Yep. So
good
we'll
for him.
see.
He's not in that poor shape, but yeah, he's back. And I just wanted to kind of point out, like, I think it's incredibly common in today's game that teams are just taking that fair catch, moving the ball to the 25. That's very common. But the number of times that IU actually attempted one to be counted on one hand, that was rare.
Yeah.
And you're right. That was a surprise. So just to add some context there, Indiana was doing what a lot of teams do, but to the extreme degree.
Yeah, and they have some other options at kick return too, with LeBron Bond, who's been fantastic through camp, and we'll have his kickoff piece, countdown to kickoff piece here in a few days. He's a guy who, kind of like Jalen Lucas, can score a touchdown when you need it. Like, it's not on demand. But if you need a big play on kickoff return, he could be back there. He could also return punts, which we'll talk about here in a second. But yeah, I would assume that Van Horst is your kickoff returner. And then, maybe Jonathan Brady, who's handled it in the past. The thought was Tyler Morris would handle some of the return duties, but he's obviously out. Maybe back next year. We'll see what he does. But let's move to punt returns. This is an area where IU was, I thought, very good last year. And now you're seeing it with Miles Price with the Vikings, a very aggressive kickoff or punt returner. And that paid dividends. You probably beat Washington anyway, but they were kind of had some momentum, and you snuffed that out with a big return. And then you really, really, really iced that Michigan game to force them to go down the field and score a touchdown when they had only done it once that game, instead of attempting a field goal with probably the best field goal kicker in the Big Ten in Zavada. And that was Keyshawn Williams. Both of them are off the NFL. Both of them are having really good preseasons, but you had 23 returns for Miles Price, a 12.5-yard average. It's not like huge or anything, but if you could get an extra first down on 23 punts, that's fantastic. You're let's say you field the ball at your own 40, you're starting in somebody in the opponent's territory.
Yeah.
So again, I would think that Cignetti said they're working 3 people at punt return. He wouldn't say who, so we'll guess. I would guess that one of them is LeBron Bond. The other one is probably Jonathan Brady, and I don't know who the third one would be. Maybe Omar Cooper, maybe, or maybe another one of the, like Rylan Gandy's return kicks and punts as well.
I kind of thought about Jaja Boyd. Maybe.
That it could too. We haven't seen special teams. They practice on a different, field most of the time, and then they usher us off before they could get, special teams practice in. Oh, one thing I want to correct from the last podcast, TJ, Ryland Gandy was not an all ACC performer. He was an academic all ACC first team, whatever. So my bad on that, but he was a 13-game starter, highly regarded in the transfer portal, and IU did beat out some big names with North Carolina and Ole Miss there. So I apologize.
With Gandy, I know that some people will look at the secondary numbers from Pitt, and this was more relevant when IU landed him, and we were excited about it. And there was some blowback of, well, yeah, but look at Pitt's secondary. They allowed this many yards per, yards through the air. That's fair and valid, but I think you have to take into account Pat Narduzzi's defensive style, which is essentially leave your defensive backs on a complete island, don't help them at all, and just blitz the heck out of the opposition and try to dial up your pass rush. And whatever happens, happens. You hope that you force some turnovers, get some sacks. So it's a very difficult place to play secondary. This system is going to be better suited for Gandy to excel. And I think that that's what a lot of coaches saw that made him coveted in the portal. It's not just strictly, well, yeah, but Pitt's pass defense was poor, so how could we want him? Anyway, on the return game, punt return, two keys, right? One is going to be making a good decision on when to catch it, when to fake the catch and let it bounce and hopefully roll into the end zone, kind of be that, decoy dummy towards the opposing team that punted the ball, their coverage team, trying to get down there and down it inside the 10 or whatever. So making good decisions every time on that. And then number two is catching cleanly and getting, like you said, aiming for that extra first down. And if you break one, awesome. But you're really looking for that consistency on making the good decision and then catching it cleanly and picking up that extra first down to set your offense up. And it really is, it's a position that the coaches have to have explicit trust in you to be able to do that.
Yeah, we saw that was one of the failures at the end of the Tom Allen era is you put Jalen Lucas back there and he could not catch a punt.
No.
And it cost them, it probably cost them a couple games. And then you have a walk-on back there who honestly probably did not know what he was doing. He would fair catch punts inside the 5, let punts go that rolled 20 yards downfield. So, last year was refreshing in that was an advantage that IU had that won them directly 2 games. All right, let's move on to if blank performs well, IU will be successful.
It's a tough one, obviously, because you are hoping that you rarely see the punter, and you are hoping that you rarely have to bring up the field goal kicker because he's just putting in extra points. But if you're talking about performing well, I'm going to go with Mitch McCarthy, just because we have such recent evidence of when that unit doesn't go well, how damaging it can be. So I'm going to go with Mitch McCarthy. And really what you're looking for there is when called upon, does he do the job? And that's you hope you don't have to call upon him much, but you are going to have to. There's no matter how good your offense is, you're going to be put in positions where your punter has to step up. Number one, not screw up. And number two, pin the opponent into a negative situation. and set up your defense to make a big play and get your offense the ball back in a much better spot than where you punted it away. Flip the field, right? And if McCarthy can do that for you some this year, I think you'll feel really good about your chances.
Yeah, that's an obvious one. Although the alternative answer is if he does not perform at all in terms of being on the field, that means IU's doing pretty well or pretty
We're
terrible.
turning it over so much. Oh my gosh,
Yeah. We're
again.
not going to go down that road. For me, it's going to be LeBron. Well, no, I'm going to use him as my breakout star. For me, it's Niko Radicic. If he performs well, we know what he could do. If he performs well, that means IU's putting points on the board, whether it's field goal or extra points. And then, as a unit, IU did block 2 kicks last year. They limited, returns for the most part. I think having that punt block unit, if they're in punt return and punt coverage unit, if they perform well, IU will be successful. Let's go to breakout star. I kind of spoiled mine. I think it's LeBron Bond. I think he's a guy who's going to make some plays in the return game. He's explosive. He's kind of like Jalen Lucas, except better in terms of he can make multiple. I think he has better vision and better intangibles than Jalen Lucas. Jalen Lucas might be faster and a better athlete in terms of that. But in terms of just football sense, I think LeBron Bond has him beat on it. And we all know what Jalen Lucas could do on kick returns. He did change a whole bunch of games for IU and almost won that bucket game in 2023. So I'm going to go LeBron Bond. Who's your breakout star?
I know it's boring, but I am in agreement with you. That's what we're hoping to see. We are hoping to see him get the chance to do that. We're hoping to see him get the chance to return kicks and to be unleashed a little bit and make some big plays. That's what we are hoping to see, is some aggression from that kick return unit. So maybe if we both throw it out there into the universe, we can manifest that. I know things don't always work that way, but we can try.
Special teams is a big part of IU's success or demise. Games won on the margins. There are 4 games that you look at, and we've labeled them that, hey, a big play either way could determine the game. Just like last year, even though Notre Dame was more death by 1,000 cuts on bad punts than just one awful special teams play like Ohio State, but. Yeah, that does it for our preseason previews. You could find them all on Spotify, Apple, iTunes podcasts, as well as on the site at HoosierHuddle.com. But before we get out of here, let's do our pick'em contest, TJ. We wanted to do a fantasy college football, but I don't think we could have a 2-man league. So we went back to the pick'em contest.
So stacked.
It was it would just be Ohio State and whatever SEC All-Star team against each other. The Hoosier Huddle Pick'em contest.
Yeah.
We have the link out on X. It's a $20 buy-in, $10. Half of it will go to us, half of it goes to the winner. It's a fun way we've done it in the past. It's a fun way to interact with us and win some money while also supporting the site and getting us a little extra cash for things. So ESPN.com, it is, I think it's Hoosier Huddle's Pick'em Group is the name, and it's payable to Venmo. I have all the information is in our forums and online. I will again post it as we get closer to the season. I think the deadline to pick games is probably the Thursday before games, but it's 10 games. Usually you pick them against the spread, and then the tiebreaker is usually the total points scored in one of the games that they have that week. So it's fun. I know a lot of the followers like it, and we'll do more with Bowl Mania and then March Madness as well in the future. So closing thoughts, TJ.
You know what? We're wrapping up our preseason talk here. I know it's a long off season. We are ready for an actual game week, and that's what we have next week, which is awesome. I know we're going to have full coverage on the site. We will have our preview pod, as well as, of course, recap podcasts. After the contest against Old Dominion, we will have I believe, a special guest from an Old Dominion podcast that will be joining us. So we're looking forward to that. Give us some really good in-depth preview talk of Old Dominion. That's going to be great. So please listen to us. And hey, you've still got time to join the site with a discounted rate of $15. That goes until kickoff next Saturday. After that, jumps up to $30. Still a great deal. We'll have all that stuff on the site. I'm fired up. I know you are as well. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be such a fun year to be able to cover it with our community. We're really excited.
Yeah, I'm super excited to not talk about IU's strength of schedule anymore, even though we probably will. But it seems that Signetti and IU has broken SEC social media and has adult human beings throwing temper tantrums like they are 2 years old. But anyway, another announcement, TJ, at Traditions and Spirits on Friday, look for us. We will have our koozies. This is not a White Claw. It is a Celsius. It gets me through the day. So koozies has QR code to subscribe on the back. We'll have a tent set up. Please stop by. Students who are listening, subscribe, like all that stuff. You'll get a koozie. And then, you can enjoy a cold beverage or keep your warm beverage hot in the late fall. Anyway, that does it. Keep coming back to HoosierHuddle.com and follow us on X at Hoosier_Huddle, Blue Sky as well at Hoosier_Huddle, and on Instagram, same at Hoosier_Huddle. So thank you for listening to all our preseason content. We'll have all our position previews and first glance previews out on social media in one place as well this week. And then, game week. We'll talk to the Old Dominion Monarchists next week about the upcoming game, and we'll be ready to rock and roll.